changing your life one story at a time. This is the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast with Editor-in-Chief Amy Newmark.
Hey, it's Amy Newmark with your daily dose of Chicken Soup for the Soul inspiration. It's Friend Friday, and that means we're joined today by a Chicken Soup for the Soul writer who has an interesting story to share with us, particularly on Father's Day weekend. So our special guest today is Kara Sundlin, and she has a story in Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Power of Forgiveness. And she's also had me on her show a few times, which I'm very grateful for. Now, Kara is a 2-time Emmy Award-winning journalist, and you can catch her live every weekday as the co-host of Better Connecticut with Scott Haney at 3 p.m. on Channel 3, which is the CBS affiliate in Hartford, Connecticut. And Kara also anchors the Eyewitness News at noon on Channel 3. She's been with Channel 3 for 16 or more years, and she's covered many of the biggest stories of our time. She covered the war in Iraq. She reported live from Ground Zero. She traveled to Bosnia to cover our troops fighting there. She delivered the first live reports from the Sandy Hook school shooting. She's been named Best Local TV News Reporter by Hartford Magazine. And Kara actually grew up in Michigan, where she graduated with honors from the University of Michigan. And then she made her way east to Rhode Island and then Connecticut, where we're very happy to have her as our local news person. She's married to Eyewitness News anchor Dennis House, and they are the proud parents of Helena and Julian. And also, Kara is the author of a very cool book called Finding Dad, From Love Child to Daughter. And she's going to share that story with us today. So, Kara, thank you so much for coming on the Chicken Soup for the Soul podcast.
I love Chicken Soup for the Soul. And so thank you, Amy. I'm so happy there's now a Connecticut connection. I never knew until I met you that we are connected via Connecticut to Chicken Soup for the Soul, which is so cool.
Yeah, we bought the company when it was based in Southern California, and we moved it to Southern Connecticut.
Awesome. Where all good things are grown. Well, I mean, I think, when we met and you told me about the opportunity, how often your best stories really come from just people, I decided to write a story. So I was honored that I was included in the Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Power of Forgiveness, because as I think the title of my book says it all, Finding Dad, From Love Child to Daughter, that was my journey. But I say in Finding Dad that really I couldn't have taken that journey if it were not for forgiveness. And forgiveness truly is the tunnel to love, which is how I went from becoming the love child that no one knew about of a sitting governor to having a real relationship with my father and healing not just me, but I would say our family on many different levels.
You know, I remember reading your story, and there was definitely, I would say, an inference that your half-siblings didn't have the best possible family life either, because there was something always keeping their father from truly showing them his love. And I think it was because he knew about you. And then once he healed things with you, he became a better father to all of his children.
Yeah, and I don't really know the reason if it was me or if it was just my father was a World War II veteran who was a Jewish bomber pilot. He was the only one in his crew not to be killed or captured. He was the pilot who gave the orders to bail out after 5 of his crew had been killed. And the other ones ended up getting captured. He was going to go down with the plane. He nearly died, but that extra 1,000 feet saved his life. And I think in that generation, so many people understand, he didn't see value in living from his heart. He learned at a very early age to just fight, and that what mattered was winning and staying alive, and that served him very well in the boardroom and the courtroom. Not so well when it comes to opening his heart to on a personal level to his marriages or to my brothers. And I think what people noticed after my father finally, and it took a journey, I mean, I was really persistent in trying to get him to acknowledge me or even believe that I could be his daughter or recognize that what he probably knew was true, that I was. But ultimately, and I'll tell you how that all happened in a little bit, but ultimately the daughter entering his life, when he finally agreed to let that happen, I don't think he planned on the fact that it really would touch his heart. And when someone's heart opens, I think it opens on many different levels. So my brothers saw a different side of him wanting to be a better father in all respects, not just to me, but to maybe the times where he missed out with them as they were growing up. So I think that was definitely true. My brothers would say that I was lucky I was a girl. And on some level, the journey we took really helped so many in our family.
So it's pretty amazing what you did. I know that you first realized who your father was when you were about 13 years old and you saw him on the news, the national news, because you were in Michigan and he was on the news for running for governor in Rhode Island all the way across the country. And then you actually went to court. I mean, you did amazing things for a teenage girl. So tell us exactly what happened.
Well, that night, as I write in the story that I shared with you guys, I woke up. I call it a meant-to-be moment. I don't believe in accidents. And I woke up at the very second that a CNN news anchor was announcing election returns, and she put the picture up saying Bruce Sundlun almost beat incumbent Governor Ed Dupree. This was in 1988. It was actually my father's second time running. I didn't realize he had run in 86. So I'm 13 years old. I'm sleeping in a hotel room with my mom because we were in the middle of a move. And I wouldn't have even been able to see it on TV if I was at home because I didn't have a TV in my bedroom. But that night we fell asleep with the TV on, and something made me wake up at that second. And my mom had always been honest and told me that your biological father is a man named Bruce Sundlun. And when I was young, I don't even know what that meant. I was like, what's a biological father? I mean, of course I knew that meant he was my real father, but I wasn't sure what to make of that or how that impacted me. And it was really at that moment that I was awakened in another way, whether I wanted it or not, because for the first time, I saw a picture of my father on TV. And I woke my mom up. I was like, is that him? Is that him? And it was. And that was something I could never just go back to bed and pretend that didn't happen. It launched something in me of, well, now I know he's in Rhode Island and I could try and find him. And I want to get to know him, and he should know that I exist, and that all of those things and all those dreams that open up for a child like that of, oh, he must just be waiting for me to call. Oh, it'll be perfect. It'll be like Annie. It'll be all those things that you let your mind get carried away with. And that's ultimately what happened. I started writing him letters, making phone calls, and eventually getting an attorney. And the reason why I say eventually is at first my father was definitely not receptive to the idea of me.
Yeah, and then you eventually got a secret meeting, a DNA test that proved that you were his daughter. And then what exactly caused him to open his heart and welcome you into his life?
Well, that's something, it's interesting that I'm not even sure if he knows. And I don't know that I can proclaim to know that second that just made him do something that was actually quite unexpected. His initial tactic was, even after the secret meeting where we clearly connected and he did say he wanted a DNA test and those results proved to be true, he didn't know what to do. And at that moment, I say it's because he was coming from fear and I was coming from love. I was, this kid who just, we're primed to want to love our parents despite their faults. And there's a universal law that love beats fear. So ultimately, this story came out that he had this love child that no one knew about, and there was intense media scrutiny. And perhaps that was the birth announcement that he needed, that he wasn't sure how to tell his family or his constituents or anything, when he was sitting in fear. And once that news was broken for him, I believe that helped, because what happened in the next couple of days, no one could have figured, which is that he went on TV and he made a plea on TV that he was hoping that I was listening, that his hand was out and his heart was open, and that he was going to help pay for my college education under the condition he would treat me like the rest of his children, but he wanted me to come live with him. How else was he going to get to know me? He said, I'm a governor in this state, because by this point he'd run again and been elected. I can't just go run off, and if we're not going to, how are we going to get to know each other? So I did that. I knew right then that I would, on a deeper level, something told me you need to wipe the slate clean. You need to forget about all the rejection up until this point, all the hurt, the lies, all those things that come that you want to, many people think I want revenge or I want a pound of flesh or how's he going to make this up? On another level, what I knew I had to do was just go, all right, I'm going to accept his offer of acceptance and we are going to start clean. And I didn't know it then, but that's forgiveness. That's like, all right, I'm going to let it go for the good of me. It's really the gift you give yourself. And I knew that I couldn't spend the next 18 years asking him why he wasn't there for the first 18 years. And because we did start fresh, we realized we had a lot in common. I moved into his house and we just really started to grow something beautiful, which really can't happen unless you clear out the junk that was there before.
I think it's such a great message for Father's Day weekend, because I know there are so many fathers out there who want to do the right thing by their children, but they don't know what to do. And sometimes men especially just get stuck and they're like, well, I've blown it for the last 20 years. I don't know how to fix it. My kids probably don't want the relationship. I'm just going to sit here quietly in pain and not do anything about it. But the fact is that kids can reach out to their fathers and find that their fathers do want the relationship. And fathers can reach out to their kids as bumbling, as bumbling as the fathers think they are, as clueless as they are as to how to express their feelings, how to reopen those closed doors. They can do it. And so hopefully some people are listening to what you're telling them today, and they're going to go and create a new relationship with their fathers this weekend and start fresh as you did.
Well, I've gotten letters from all over the country where people have said, I really want to reach out to my father, or vice versa. I don't think my kids, I can do it. I walked out, I made mistakes. And the real message in Finding Dad was it's never too late to heal. I mean, a lot of people would have looked at it and said, well, you missed the boat. She's 18 years old. I celebrated my 18th birthday 2 weeks after I moved into his house. And I still experienced so much healing on a really a subconscious level. It was just him showing up in my life, him all of a sudden caring. I started to attract better guys. I used to date jerks. And then, all of a sudden everyone started to notice that once I went to college and started, my professional life. And I think my self-worth increased by just his acceptance and acknowledgement. And it wasn't anything crazy he said. It wasn't any giant act he did. It was just from that moment on, he showed up and we had holidays together and he made phone calls and he showed up at my Parents' Day weekend and, he owned his mistakes, a lot of times with humor. I mean, making jokes like, yeah, I'm really messed up here. But I agree with you, Amy. He didn't think, I had to come after him, but I think he thought on some level he missed the boat and I was better off without him and I was fine. And somehow fathers are just an accessory that we don't really need. And the science that I learned in reporting Finding Dad and writing my own story and experiencing myself was that, they really are. Fathers are our foundation. And we often walk around feeling less than or unsure of ourselves until a father shows up in our life. And I'm proof. He didn't show up till I was 18. I knew him 1 year longer than I did not know him. He recently passed. And I have a wonderful family, and I believe that's in part my 2 children, my wonderful husband, because of the healing that we did. I truly believe it's never too late to heal.
Yeah, and I think that what you said about how you didn't date the right kind of guys until you had the relationship with your father, I think that's very telling, because I think if you don't have a relationship with the most important man in your life, even if it's a father you don't actually know, then it's hard to create relationships with other men in your life. I think guys have to repair their relationships with the females in their family, and girls have to repair their relationships with the males in their family in order to move forward and create romantic relationships that will be good for them.
And I think even if you can't get the reconciliation, some people say, oh, that's such a fairy tale, what happened to you? And I'll say, fairy tales aren't real. Forgiveness is really magic. But even if you can't have that reconciliation, perhaps there's been a death, or perhaps you're just not ready to actually have them be part of your life, the forgiveness is still a journey. And I encourage people to Google this. What is it really? It's really the act of letting go. It's letting go of the anger and the hurt and the resentment. Whatever grows after that will be so individual. In some cases, maybe there was so much hurt, be it physical or mental, that it doesn't make sense to have this person back in your life. But you still, for yourself, going through that letting go and not holding on to it will allow you to do what we now know from science. Our brain has an unending capacity to rewire itself and heal if we let it. But we often ruminate on the old and the bad and the anger, and all that does is keep us stuck and can actually really, on a physical level, depress our immune system and open us up to disease. And it's fascinating that science is starting to look about the reason why we need to heal relationships and forgive is not just for the emotional, but for the health-wise, for our physical sense as well. So I would encourage people that even if you think you don't want this person in your life, the act of forgiveness is really for yourself. It's a gift you give yourself.
Absolutely. It really is. And I think that's an important message this Father's Day weekend. And I want to thank you, Kara, for joining us. It's a great Father's Day story. I want to thank everyone for listening today. I'm Amy Newmark here with Kara Sundlin. Now, the next time we get together, I'm going to tell you about some cats that will make you want to go right out to your local shelter to adopt. If you want to read Kara's story and Chicken Soup for the Soul, The Power of Forgiveness, please go to our website, chickensoup.com.